Good morning, you beautiful people. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day today. Today, I want to talk about sprint out times, sprinting, and how these mechanics affect the rushing playstyle. In order to talk about how to balance sprint out times, we need to argue the purpose of sprint out times. And in order to figure out the purpose of sprint out times, we need to talk about the purpose of sprinting. Why do people sprint? Why do you run in Call of Duty? Sprinting is good if you want to get to a position of advantage rather quickly. It's also good if you want to get close to an enemy, say you have an SMG or shotgun. Sprinting can help you close the gap between you and your enemy so that you can be within your effective range. The opposite is also true if you have an LMG, AR, or sniper and you want to get away from the enemy. Sprinting is a good way of doing that, falling back. And sprinting can be good for evading a gunfight you don't want to be in. These are reasons that I believe we can all agree on to sprint in Call of Duty. I'm gonna beat a dead horse here, but as I always say, positioning and awareness is huge for Call of Duty, and the ability to sprint, the ability to increase your movement speed in order to get advantageous positioning is absolutely essential and incredibly powerful. So powerful, in fact, that it requires a trade-off. If you are going to utilize increased movement to put yourself in a position of advantage, that needs to come at a cost, and that cost being your weapon readiness. This is the purpose of sprint out times. The time it takes for you to go from sprinting to firing your weapon is the sprint out time. Sprint out times are nothing new in Call of Duty, and they're nothing new to the first-person shooter genre in general. The simple nature of sprint out times puts you at a disadvantage in one specific situation. That situation is you sprinting into a gunfight, sprinting into somebody who is not sprinting, who is either waiting for you, anticipating you, or just simply not sprinting. Hypothetically speaking, let's take a situation where one player sprinted into a gunfight where the other player was not sprinting. If, in this hypothetical situation, every player had 100% accuracy and perfect reaction times, the person who sprinted into the gunfight would lose that gunfight 100% of the time, no matter how fast or no matter how slow the sprint out times actually are. Is this because game developers want to discourage running and rushing? No, it's because Call of Duty is about positioning, yes, but also awareness. Good Call of Duty players are aware of where the enemies might come from. Good Call of Duty players, good first-person shooter players, never sprint into gunfights. An important quote that I want us to keep in mind by Michael Condrey. The removal of boost thrust also gave us predictable places from which threats could appear and a more consistent closing speed between players. Traffic patterns are predictable, especially in a boots on the ground Call of Duty. Intelligence, awareness, anticipation, this is what's rewarded. With predictable traffic patterns and a consistent movement speed, rushing should be flanking. It should be being unpredictable. It should be changing your location intelligently and quickly. Sprint out times are laughably irrelevant when you are flanking to the side and behind enemies. You can very much still run and be aggressive with the current sprint out times in World War II. What you cannot do is you cannot sprint into gunfights and expect to win. And something the community needs to accept, that no matter the game, no matter the sprint out time, no matter how fast, no matter how slow it is, players need to accept that you are always vulnerable while you're sprinting. Good players do not sprint into gunfights. That being said, here is why I believe the sprint out times should change in World War II. Taking my anecdote earlier saying if everybody had 100% accuracy and 100% reaction time in that perfect situation, then the sprinter would always lose. And I believe that is huge. That should be the case because that is what is consistent. That is something that I can teach on my channel. I can say don't sprint into gunfights, always anticipate people. That's a very good learning experience. However, humans are not perfect. We do not have perfect reaction times. We do not have perfect accuracy. If the player that is sprinting into the gunfight has a phenomenal reaction time and amazing accuracy, I believe they should have some advantage. They should have some chance, however slight it may be, at besting the person who is not sprinting. If the person not sprinting has subpar reaction times and subpar accuracy. Again, I want it to be that consistently sprinting into gunfights is a poor choice, but I don't want it to be a certain death as well. This is why the community is saying that this is closing the skill gap. This is why the community is saying that this Call of Duty is for bad players. They think that you're closing the skill gap. This is just not true. Like I said before, if you were good at Call of Duty, you wouldn't be sprinting into gunfights in the first place. That being said, if the sprint out times were ever so slightly lowered, maybe 50 milliseconds just for SMGs even, I think those people with exceptional reaction times and exceptional accuracy could be rewarded for that in their own way. And I don't think that would ruin the consistency of sprinting into gunfights is a bad practice. The next reason I believe we should change sprint out times is because of previous crutch perks we've had in Call of Duty. Stopping power and focus I want to focus on right now. With Black Ops 1 and Modern Warfare 3, there were no Juggernog and there was no stopping power. And each developer, Treyarch and Infinity Ward, had their own unique way of eliminating this weird perk combination. Treyarch simply took out stopping power and all of their weapons were balanced as such, whereas Infinity Ward with Modern Warfare 3 seemingly gave each and every weapon stopping power itself. These are the two options we have when it comes to crutch perks. You can either get rid of it and don't change your base game entirely, or you can make that crutch perk integrated with all of the whatever we're talking about, either the player character or the weapons itself in the case of stopping power. This is what we saw with the toughness perk, with the focus perk. Flinch was incredibly difficult and unpredictable and difficult to control, so there was a perk for it. However, everybody was using this perk, as we figured out with Primed earlier this year as well. So what the developers, Treyarch and Infinity Ward, and now you, Sledgehammer, decided to do was to give everybody that perk. Give everybody focus, give everybody toughness, give everybody primed right off the bat. And that crutch perk is now eliminated and the community is happy with the dynamic. This, I believe, is what we should do with the sprint out time perk. Either ready up, I know it as ready up, maybe dexterity in Black Ops 2 if I'm remembering correctly. You said that while playtesting, you did have a basic training that made it so that your sprint out times were decreased, and you said that everybody used it. So the solution to me is pretty simple. Just give it to everybody. I think of myself as a Call of Duty chameleon. I can really play any playstyle. I can camp, I can rush, I can snipe, I can shotgun. Half the time I'm XCal, half the time I'm Wings of Redemption. You know, I feel like I'm pretty adaptable. However, in World War II, I will say that when I do try to push hard with an SMG or even in a rifle, it does feel awkward a little bit. It doesn't feel unbalanced, it doesn't feel unfair to me personally, but it does feel a little awkward and a little slow. And I think a little buff to the sprint out times could really be beneficial for the feel and the flow of this game. Not to mention, like any other aspect of weapon balancing, this is another tool for you to use for your weapon balancing. This is something that we saw with Call of Duty Ghosts. The Vepr, one of my favorite SMGs, had a significantly decreased sprint out time just default on the weapon, and it was absolutely amazing because of that. So even if you don't want to do a whole sprint out time across the board being decreased, please open this aspect up, open this dynamic up, open this attribute up for your own playtesting, for your own changing and altering for how these weapons play out. Are these slower sprint out times in World War II the death of the rushing playstyle? No, absolutely not. And any claim to be is childish, illogical, and just kind of stupid. These slow sprint out times in World War II make it so that you are heavily punished for sprinting into gunfights. That is the only situation that these sprint out times matter. Flanking, being aggressive, and maneuvering the map in such an intelligent way to get around your enemies, behind your enemies, is still a very, very viable playstyle. Rushing, being aggressive, is viable in World War II, just as it always has been in every Call of Duty. Yes, I do believe they should change the sprint out times. I do believe that SMGs can get the slightest edge and maybe dominate in the SMG territory as they should be. That's just my opinion. But anyway, that's all I have time for you guys today. Let me know in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on the sprint out times here in World War II? Thank you guys so much for watching. Until the next absolutely beautiful Call of Duty morning, I'll catch up with you guys later. And as always, stay beautiful.